If you're just tuning in, this is the Situation Room, and we get into a conversation that will have many diplomatic, political, global ties here and there, but necessary for us to have, because from about 8 weeks to 9 weeks ago is when people knew about the Strait of Hormuz. Before that, people were concerned. People never really knew that this was the corridor through which a lot of what you get actually needed to pass through. Mm-hmm. And then countries got into quite a lot of conflict, and there were threats of it closing. It actually did close at some point, and that then caused problems in terms of rising fuel costs and concerns and anxiety about whether people will then get the commodities that they need within country. And the two countries that were involved in this were the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran. For us to now say that perhaps there is something where the two have sat and said, let's have a discussion, but let's talk about what exactly has happened in that. And His Excellency Ali Gholampour is the Iranian ambassador to Kenya and joins us in the studio this morning. Good morning, Balozi.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me here in your lovely program. And I wanted to convey my greetings to your audience and listeners as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming today, because there are many questions that are bound in terms of what exactly is going on now. And maybe we can be as basic as that in the first question, that what exactly is going on now, Balozi?
Yeah. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Just you mentioned about the kind of memorandum of understanding or deal, as you mentioned, that was reached between Iran and US, of course, by brokering and facilitating by a friendly country of Pakistan and few others. Mm-hmm. So now the situation is like a ceasefire, but as you know, there are many cases of violation of this ceasefire and this agreement that happened afterwards by the United States. You know, according to the deal and the agreement, total ceasefire and immediate termination of attacks should be observed by the United States and its allies. And the Strait of Hormuz also to be open for commercial vessels to passage, their free passage for 60 days until that time that the two sides to reach to the final agreements and arrangements. But unfortunately, the United States breached its promises and undertakings and attacked in several times on Iranian cities in south and the coastlines in the Persian Gulf. And of course, Iran again responded to defend itself, to exercise its right to defend, self-defense. But the point is that still both sides are committed, as they say, to continue with the terms of the agreement. It means that Iran is committed to the conditions and terms, and still the indirect negotiations and dialogue is continued at technical level.
But Balozi, how can you say that you're committed to the terms of the agreement if the United States continues to attack and if Iran continues to retaliate?
That's an issue, and that's why Iranian authorities and also those who were facilitating this deal, they are still insisting and requesting from the United States to be abiding by its undertakings under this agreement, because it serves not only the benefits of both sides and the countries in the region, but also it serves the interests of all countries around the globe. That's very important.
Allow me to just hold on to something here. That usually, if we look at conflicts around the globe, for a ceasefire or an agreement, a memorandum of understanding to be reached by two conflicting sides. There is the consideration of the initial issue that brought this about. Iran having been testing nuclear weapons, which was within their rights to do so as a sovereign nation. This did not sit very comfortably with the US. Now, after that is when we saw the escalation of this conflict over different issues here and there, with the inclusion and or not of Israel and other countries allied to the United States. Now, when we look at what happened thereafter and the first attack on Iran with the killing of Khamenei and all of these things that happened after that, one would imagine that a ceasefire would mean that there would be recognition, or at the very least acknowledgement, of the sovereignty of Iran to then do what it needed to do within a safe space. Has that happened?
Yeah, to some extent this has happened because the United States eventually, and this is also a right which has been recognized by international law, and they again confirmed and reconfirmed that right for to not to interfere in internal affairs of Islamic Republic of Iran, and also to refrain from attacking the territorial or breaching the territorial integrity of Iran. So these are two basic principles in international relations, and it means that they have acknowledged again the rights of sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
So why would they attack if they have acknowledged this within the tenets of the agreement?
That's why we do believe that they breached openly international norms and regulations, and it is the countries, when they breach, they should bear the responsibility, and they should be responsible even though you are a permanent member of the Security Council of the United Nations.
Well, Assalamu alaikum. No, sometimes the world gets confused because we have so many conflict areas, and we try to understand what is the essence of war, what is the essence of conflict. I would want to draw a bit of reference to Iran still. In 2020, I think in January thereabout, General Suleiman was taken out. And here we are, almost 6-7 years later, still talking about a conflict. And you look at the then purported threat, it was not about nuclear weapon, but it was about planned attacks. So it was reported. But Iran was put in a situation where they have to defend themselves and say, we are innocent, which comes out as oppressing a victim and then telling them to justify why they were oppressed. What I'm trying to allude to is the essence of peace building, because peace building mostly comes after a conflict. But those of these conflicts cannot be justified, in my opinion. One, Iran is not the only country that has been developing nuclear weapons. There are like 9 other countries which have even significant amounts of nuclear weapons, but we don't hear them going into war, in this case with the United States or any other country. Why is Iran perceived to be a threat to the global peace?
First of all, your presumption is absolutely wrong, because Iran never has followed a pursuit to test or to build nuclear weapons. This is completely different from peaceful nuclear activities. Under the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, each and every country, including Kenya, who is a member, is entitled to follow and pursue nuclear activities, but peaceful in nature. And those activities, peaceful activities, should be also under the comprehensive or under the safeguard activities.
And Iran has been
by the IAEA, and Iran has been
compliant with that.
Yeah, more than any other country.
Right.
Iran has received extensive inspections, on-site inspections, and non-stop camera surveillance, and regular reports by the IAEA inspectors teams, and they have confirmed that there has been no sign of any deviation from those peaceful activities, from peaceful to military. So that's why not only Iran, but many other independent countries in the world. And I do believe that this is the belief by the government of Kenya, that Iran has never diverted toward military purposes and has been always limited to peaceful activities. But what happened against Iran is it was just a pretext, because when you have a broad sort of foreign policy agenda for invasion, for continuation of conflicts and crises, to expand your territory, as the Israeli regime they are doing. So you need some pretext to convince your people at home and abroad, And because international and legally speaking, you are prevented from resorting to threat, use of threat and force against other independent and sovereign countries. But when you resort to force or threat to use force, you need to something to justify your activities as a pretext. And this is what the United States and the Israeli regime always they have claimed. And they have claimed for more than 20 years. And they say that Iran is going to reach to to build nuclear bombs or warheads just in 6 months, in 1 year, and all this has been false narrations. But we need to put our trust in international mechanisms, which is agreeable to all countries, which is the IAEA. And Iran as a member to IAEA, and as a member, Iran was one of the first countries who joined the NPT, non-proliferation treaty, and it still is committed because the inspections are continuing.
Right.
And no international, no reports from the IAEA that mechanism, that inspection mechanism has been issued and says that Iran has had any kind of or any
enrichment.
Sort of, enrichment is peaceful, but going for using as military, no, absolutely it's wrong. And we are, nuclear energy and nuclear knowledge and technology has many other uses, peaceful uses in health, in agriculture, in food industry. So it's not only limited for military purposes, but they are going to, to make it as a monopoly on this technology. It belongs to the humanity. It's not belong to only this and other countries.
Ambassador, as we talk about the ceasefire that we see today and further negotiations and discussions that are ongoing, one would say that it would be important as well for everybody to be honest in that conversation, where the IAEA has been put in place to check those who are there to the rules of the game. And IAEA itself has over time said Iran has not broken any rules, But everybody else concerned in that conversation has maintained that Iran in one way or the other is breaking the rules. So why is it that those who are at the forefront in setting up IAEA do not trust IAEA when they tell them we do not have any nuclear development for warheads, yet they played an important role in setting up this institution to tell the world where the position is at. But even while at that, then, as the negotiations continue, we see the ceasefire in place, is there recognition of wrongdoing, and this is in attacking Iran wrongfully, for us to say there is progress towards having lasting peace?
We had several check and balance mechanisms in place, in addition to IAEA inspections. The U.S. also is a member there. All other countries are member to the IAEA, but a few of them are out of NPT. Okay. They are not a member to non-proliferation, and they are not committed. They just have built nuclear bombs, and they have it. They possess nuclear bombs, including the Israeli regime. They are a nuclear regime, and they are a real threat to others. And this regime, who is standing outside of this NPT regime, is, claiming that Iran is a threat, which is meaningless. And the United States as well, because we do believe that at this point in time, the United States is just take care of the interests of Israel, not its own national interests, and is following and playing in that ground that it has been provided by the Israeli for them. So we we say that now the U.S. is a proxy to the interests of Israel, because Israel is an international threat to peace and stability, because in addition to genocide policies that they are following and implementing and doing in Palestine, they are also a nuclear entity, and they are real threat to others, to international peace and security, and by their offensive foreign policies, that is, as an expansionist regime, they are real and serious threat to the security of others and international security.
So,
but since they are repeating again and again and again that Iran, we are attacking Iran because we wanted to eliminate a threat, a nuclear threat. After bombing and destroying all the facilities, I cannot believe it, because there has, as they claim, has not remained to be worried about. Why they continue their aggression, and still they are threatening to to again attack. So these are showing and these are demonstrating that the kind of justifications that they are brought to the public, it's just for convincing their, feeding the people inside and outside, because they need such kind of justification. But otherwise they are not. It's not easy for them to resort to attacks or military attacks.
But the conflict has been U.S., Israel, Iran. It started with the attack on Iran by the Israeli. But in the deal that we're hearing now, it is U.S.-Iran deal. Where is Israel in all this?
But if you take a look into the terms of this memorandum of understanding, in the first paragraph, it indicating clearly that U.S. and its allies, and it means that the U.S. and its allies, as you mentioned, the Israeli regime was also committed
to this,
or should be committed to these terms. And one of the agreements that they reached under this agreement is an immediate and a total stop on aggression and wars in the region, including, and it has been named, in Lebanon. So Israeli regime is committed there, and the continuation of aggression and killing the people and attacks by Israeli regime against the people of Lebanon was one of the reasons that Iran, for one time or two times, has just argued that under such circumstances, as they are still going on with their aggressions, we cannot be to stay silent and not to defend the people of Lebanon, because it is a part of this agreement. And if they are not going to respect that, we will not be able to not to respond. And that's why again, the United States and the Trump also again put its pressure on Israel to bring it under this kind of
Ambassador, allow me to ask, because this is not the first time we are hearing of peace agreement. Many have come and gone and they have not been honored. I think 3 years later, we are still talking about the certification of Palestine. The war in Palestine has not yet been concluded. And every now and then you'd hear there is a ceasefire on a Friday, but on Monday morning, an attack would happen. We've seen the same happening with Iran now. If I was to draw back from history, there is a time, and correct me if I'm off topic, there is a time when the Arab countries united and they even conquered this world in terms of, economy and even ruling. We have Swahili language here in Kenya, which is a product of the Arab movement. Today we have so many, of course they have segmented to countries today, but why is it we don't see the same union, the same unity, the same safeguards, the same coexistence. Because in my opinion, if peace continues to be defined by one perceived superpower, then it means the interest of the many have been subverted. And that's why you find that every now and then you see the United States becomes the custodian of peace. So they'll decide whether to import or export peace or war, depending on who is telling the story. But where is it that we are not able to find, devoid of all these international treaties and organizations we get in, because they are not working. If they were working, the Myanmar region, that war would have been concluded. Palestine, Lebanon just got the worst attack the other day. I think it is worse than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki from many years ago. Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz, which is an economic hub, would not have been shut down. At what point are we going to agree that we need to come together as a world or as a region and define what global peace is? Because today is Iran. We don't know which country will be attacked tomorrow. We saw a president of Venezuela being abducted from his own country. So we may be quiet because it's not happening in the region or in the country, but you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. What will it take for us to change tact and define more meaningful, peaceful mechanisms?
Yeah, it's these are the the realities in international politics. And after World War II, the whole international community came together based on international law, to establish United Nations, just to preserve peace and security. And of course, peace and security and development, economic growth and development and prosperity. But we have been witnessing a lot of failures in that structure of and mechanism, which is the United Nations, and specifically the Security Council. That's why many, and I do agree with you, because now there's many countries, including Kenya, Iran, and many others, they are calling for a reform at all levels at international relations and international arena, for the economic architecture of international relations, the political and security architecture. And they are requesting, including African countries, for a vote, African vote, permanent membership and a vote in the Security Council. And that's why they have come to this conclusion that the current system is not satisfying. It's not sufficient to guarantee the peace, as you say, and what is required. And we also witnessed that the Security Council was failed to prevent and bring a ceasefire or bring negotiations, and that's why other countries step into and they mediated to bring the ceasefire. So these are the realities, and the failures are there. And I do believe that usually, humanity comes after crisis, after big crisis, big failures, to bring and establish a new mechanism. And I hope that by abiding to international laws, because international law has many, developed principles. Most of them are just cogents that are, each and every country is obligated to respect. So that. I hope that based on international law, we sooner or later to be able to reach to that level of peace for each and every person, not only at international level, but domestically. What is the situation now inside Palestine and inside Lebanon? These are just a genocide. This is a kind of discrimination between a certain group of people and others. And that's why they are still continuing to killing others, and because they have the might, they have the power. So we need to come to a certain point that powers or the established government are not allowed to impose themselves as they do now in Israel or in Palestine or in Lebanon. But let me just to refer to what is happening right now in Iran, as you know about it. On 28th of February, 2026 as a result of the aggression and attacks, military attacks by the United States and the Israeli regime, they just martyred our supreme leader, the supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei, and many other commanders and Iranian authorities. And so during the wartime, it was not, a suitable time for having ceremony. But now we have planned during these calm days for a state ceremony of funeral ceremony. And this will last for 7 days. So we will have a kind of official state ceremonies who leaders from delegation, high and senior delegations and leaders from more than 90 countries who now are in Iran to pay respects to the body of the supreme leader. So it's for 2-3 days. It will be the ceremony, official ceremony in Tehran. They will go to Qom. Qom is a city in Iran who is a religious city, you know, and the religious kind of rituals will be observed there, and then they will go to Mashhad city, who is the hometown of the supreme leader, and he will be buried there just inside a shrine, holy shrine of the 8th leader of the Shiite people. So, participation of such a big number of leaders and delegations from around the world, it shows that the aggression is condemned. Okay, it's it's just signaling to the international world that, look, we are not going along with such aggression. And the other thing is that the people of Iran and many millions of others who participating from from foreign countries, they showed that how respectful and how significant was the leadership of that supreme leader, as not only as a religious leader but as a political leader.
The Strait of Hormuz was known to very few people before this conflict, but then suddenly when pumps ran dry and then prices went high, everybody suddenly knew that this small corridor that connected this part of the world to different parts of the world where commercial freight would move, especially fuel, oil, it suddenly became very, very important to everybody, because we sometimes imagine that a conflict between two countries will not give the rest of the world a cold. But in this case, everybody caught the pneumonia. And so when Iran decided, well, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to shut it down, or we're going to limit the activity, or open it just for 2 days in a week. Balozi, everybody felt it. Until today, there are countries that are still reeling from the effects of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, or the threat that it might. In international politics, play out for us, if you can, the reasons as to why this strait and its closure that would have these ripple effects on the rest of the world, literally, was taken as a decision in a conflict that was between two nations.
No. First of all, it is not a conflict between two nations.
No, I mean,
we have from one side a superpower and also another regime who is a nuclear bomb regime. And many others who supported that kind of operation against Iran. And again, the Strait of Hormuz is a very strategic location for international economy. And main part of the fuel and energy pass through this strait, and it is not limited only to energy, but it also a passage for other commodities, and in particular, for agricultural, pesticides and also those products that are needed for agriculture, and also for the food security. Yeah. And nowadays, everybody in the world has felt that the impact of any crisis in Persian Gulf will have a negative effect on all others. But the thing is that just before this outbreak of this aggression, it was open.
Yes.
Historically, it was open,
Yes.
although it's located in the territorial waters of Iran and in between Iran and the Sultanate of Oman. Unfortunately, the war situation caused this kind of closure, as you just mentioned. But Iran was not the reason. When you are under attack and it's a war, so there is no security for passage. All the insurance companies will raise their prices, their rates, and the risk for passage, even by the owners of the vessels, as they do as a self-restraint, not to risk to pass through. So, and this is because of the war. Anything can happen in terms of safety and security. So the threat and the passage was stopped during the war, and just during the negotiations between Iran and the U.S. facilitating by Pakistan, the Strait of Hormuz was one of the core issue areas that they were discussing, and how to arrange for this strait for the future after the final deal or agreement comes in.
Yeah.
And if you look at the language that they have put there, and this is an acknowledgement that they say that the passage for commercial vessels for 60 days is free of charge, no limitation, no charge, and it's now the things that it's happening now. The vessels are free to do passage, but of course the corridor, which is safe, the safest corridor that Iran has guaranteed for the passage. So all the vessels are free to move through this passage channel and corridor. And based on the agreements, after 60 days, the two littoral states, which is the Sultanate of Oman and Iran, of course, in dialogue with other countries in the Persian Gulf, will put in place arrangements for long run kind of passage, and also the cost of any sort of services that these two countries are providing for the vessels, according to international law, and of course the sovereignty rights of the littoral states. So this is the new regime, as I can say, that will emerge as during these consultations and this dialogue in the future. But for the time being, as long as the ceasefire is continued and lasts, for now it's for 60 days. That's almost few days of this has passed, but it is also extendable according to the terms of the agreement. And afterwards, we will have a regime which is free of charge. The passage is free and guaranteed, but the services that are provided will be subject to the charge. The services like maritime services, rescue, safety, environment. These are the provisions that are recognized in international law.
Well, Ambassador, I understand the need for what I would refer to as diplomatic statements, because we are aspiring to a more cohesive, world, basically speaking. But again, perhaps not to belabor the point, but I think if we don't understand the problem, we can never craft a solution. We'll just be, throwing punches in the air. Before February of this year, Iran had not attacked the United States.
And no other country.
Country. But now here you, not you as a person, but here is Iran trying to defend itself how it is not a threat. Years ago, a similar situation prevailed in Afghanistan, if you remember. And earlier on, I even mentioned about the assassination of General Suleiman. At what point will the world say no to imposition and exportation of terror in the name of peace building? When does the world sit down and agree? It is the United States, in this particular case, that defines who is a threat and must be eliminated, that defines what parameters of peace are correct for the global world. We continue to see, and again I say, the genocide and the desertification of Palestine. Olive trees that have been old for more than 50, 100 years, a source of livelihood, are being just chopped off so that people can be moved. So I'm trying to enlarge that conversation. I know it is important for Iran to retain its sovereignty and peace and economic power and develop as they should, like any other country in the world. But we have to agree that we have a bigger problem than just the Strait of Hormuz or the Iran crisis now, or even the Lebanon or the Palestine crisis. I think the major, or according to you, what is the bigger problem? Who is this that is generating conflict? Because if we can understand that, then we'll know perhaps how to generate peace.
This is very, a question that everybody now tries to find an answer. Mm-hmm. Because I do believe that the international community and the people around the world, in all countries, they are tired of this kind of, everybody to attack here and the pretext of the fighting against terrorism, fanning the fire of wars, especially domestic and internal wars, including in your region, in Africa and many other countries, and Afghanistan and Syria and many other countries.
Correct.
So now everybody feels that it's high time to reach to a point that peace prevailed everywhere, and the terrorism to be removed or terminated. At least the pretext to use fight against terrorism for intervening in internal affairs of others. First of all, we need an international cohesiveness among those countries who may in the future to be a subject to this kind of treatment.
Right.
All African countries, they should come up with one voice. All countries in Asia, in Latin America, they should come, and even in Europe, they should come with one voice against suppression, against oppression, apartheid, aggressions and terrorism. But again, always I try to bring a new definition to terrorism. We have a state terrorism. We have terrorist groups, extremists here and there. But it should be separated from those movements who are fighting for their liberation. That's something absolutely different. This is completely different. Because those who are fighting for liberation, they are fighting for independence, they are fighting for identity, their history, their people, their land. It's different. What's happened in Lebanon, in for example, in Yemen, in other places. But when a regime or a superpower, as you mentioned, the assassination of the General Qasem Soleimani, it's a state terrorism that we should prevent it. And the unity of other countries, all the countries, all awakened consciousness around the world should stand together and to firmly to reject and condemn. Yeah. And this condemnation is the beginning of a route towards a time that we can reach to a kind of strength to stand and request for peace. And this is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Balozi, the question on nuclear warheads has been touted as to being the reason why the Israeli regime has attacked Iran time and time over again. We recognize that IEA is there, they're members, but when it comes to NPT, they do not belong there. And pretty much the world is saying, if everybody else is stopped from enriching themselves, rather developing nuclear warheads, then the world should be free of nuclear warheads. Everybody should just stay away from that. Why is there some sort of agreement that there are those who it's okay for them to have nuclear warheads, others should not? Is there fairness in that?
This is, the NPT is based on the discrimination.
Yeah.
And this discrimination is between those who have and those who have not. And, in process to joining to NPT, Israeli regime and North Korea and India and Pakistan, and those are 4 other countries who joined the club of those who have, and this discrimination has been continued. According to NPT, nuclear powers, including United States, Britain, France, China, and Russia, they committed themselves to gradually move towards disarmament.
Yes.
But this didn't happen. Their commitment was not fulfilled, and vice versa. From the other side, they advanced their technologies, military technologies, military warheads, and now we have much more sophisticated warhead technologies, and the others came in. So it means that as long as those countries who have, they are not moving to fulfill their commitments for disarmament, the others will be encouraged to go, because attack against Iran, what happened? Iran is a member to NPT. Two nuclear powers attacked Iran, and other countries mainly they didn't condemn, including the IAEA Director General, the Garussi, it's himself. They didn't, against their obligations, they didn't condemn these aggressions that happened and occurred by two nuclear weapons against a non-nuclear weapons.
Yes.
So this situation, if it's continued, then the others will rethink that, look, for defending myself, the only deterrence would be this, kind of to be an atomic country. Otherwise, I will be subject to, as Iran was attacked and hit.
Right.
So these strategic calculations should be changed, and that's depending on how nuclear powers are going to do their obligations. But until that time, I assure you that each and every other country will rethink its strategic doctrine as how should I defend myself against foreign aggressions and those aggressions that are violating international law.
Well, Ambassador, perhaps a quick one on a different trajectory, because peace building is a process as well. But you realize most countries are always getting war ready. The budgetary allocations that goes to defense in many countries, is exorbitant. Today, we have countries like the United Kingdom, the USA, having military bases at the peripherals in the name of protection. But the threat is sort of imaginary. At some point, they'll utilize that now to catalyze some war in terms of maybe coming to intervene.
No, the function is vice versa. It's an anti-security cause for the national security of those hosting countries.
Is that proposal in the peace deal?
This is, it was long before, many years ago, Iran proposed a regional security agreement. But, other countries, they relied on the military bases, as you know. But now they're thinkers, their authorities, the people themselves, they realize that it's time to think about a regional, genuine kind of security arrangement.
Right. Well, it's all to then be experienced over the next few weeks, 60 days. We're still in the beginning of that, to see how it will all unfold. Thank you for coming and giving insights into this conversation this morning. But some things have been made very clear. Balozi Ali Gholampour is the Iranian ambassador to Kenya, has joined us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me in your program.
Asante sana. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.